The night Ethan finally stopped loving Mason was the same night Mason realized he had never stopped loving him. Funny how heartbreak always shows up late and leaves early, like some rude guest who raids the fridge and disappears. Ethan had sworn to himself he was done with the games. Done with the half-promises, the almost touches, the way Mason always pulled him close only to pretend none of it mattered the very next day. Yet here he was, in the heart of New York City, stepping out of a glossy black car into a party hosted by Preston Hale, the wealthiest man Mason trusted like blood. A man who, for some reason Ethan still didn't understand, had taken a sharp interest in him. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was being tired of being the joke in someone else's story. Or maybe it was simply time for the universe to finally stop laughing. The mansion glowed with warm amber lights, every chandelier glistening like a new promise. The guests moved gracefully, whispers trailing behind them like perfume. Ethan walked inside with Preston beside him, the older man offering his arm with a charming smile. Ethan didn't take it, but he didn't pull away either. He didn't know that Mason was already there. Mason stood near a massive window overlooking the lawn, dressed in a black suit that looked too expensive for someone who usually dressed like he lived out of his car. His eyes scanned the room with a restlessness Ethan had once mistaken for ambition. But tonight, when Mason saw Ethan step into the golden hall, his expression shattered. Just a flicker, but enough to reveal everything he thought he had hidden. Ethan felt it, felt those eyes, felt that familiar ache trying to claw its way back into him like a bad habit. Preston leaned closer. "You all right? You look like you're seeing a ghost." Ethan forced a smile. Something like that. Mason moved fast, almost too fast. The crowd blurred behind him as he pushed his way through polished suits and glittering gowns. His heart drummed loud enough he worried someone else might hear it. "Ethan." He said the name as if saying it could undo the months of silence. Ethan lifted his chin calmly. "Mason." Preston observed them with a curious, knowing smile. "Ah, so this is the Mason I've heard about." Mason shot Preston a glare sharp enough to cut glass. His jaw tightened. "You talked to him?" Ethan shrugged. "He's interesting." That word hit Mason like a punch. Interesting. A word Ethan had never used for him. Mason turned back to Ethan, his voice low, strained. "Can we talk?" Ethan sighed, not harshly, but with the tired softness of someone who had cried too much in the past to cry now. "There was a time I would have dropped everything the moment you asked." "Not tonight." Mason swallowed. "Please, just 5 minutes." Preston stepped in smoothly. "If Ethan wants to talk, he'll talk. If not, well, he's with me tonight." The possessiveness was subtle but unmistakable, and Mason felt it like a spark under his skin. Mason exhaled and looked directly at Ethan. The room fell away. His eyes weren't sharp or bold. They were desperate, scared. "Bro, Ethan, please." It was the please that did it. Ethan nodded once. "Fine. 5 minutes." They slipped out onto the terrace, the cold breeze slicing through the tension between them. For a moment neither spoke. The night stretched wide over New York, the skyline glittering like a promise neither could trust. Ethan leaned against the railing. "Well, I'm here. Say whatever you need to say." Mason closed his eyes briefly before meeting Ethan's stare. "You weren't supposed to be with him." Ethan laughed, quiet and bitter. "You don't get to decide that." "I know." Mason took a step closer. "I know I messed up. I just didn't think you'd run to someone like Hale." "Someone like Hale?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Someone who treats me with respect?" Mason flinched. Ethan looked away toward the skyline. "You had your chance. You had 100 chances, Mason. Every time I tried to tell you how I felt, you pretended I was joking. Like my heart was some punchline you didn't want to hear." Mason's breath hitched. "I didn't think you were joking." "Then why?" "Because if I had admitted what you meant to me, it would have ruined everything. My job, my life, my stability. I was scared." Ethan's shoulders dropped. "And what about me? Did it ever once cross your mind that pushing me away might ruin me?" Mason moved closer until he was only a foot away. His voice trembled. "Every day. And I hated myself for it." Ethan looked up, surprised. Mason continued, words spilling like something he had held back for too long. You were the only thing that made me feel like I wasn't drowning. You made everything brighter. You made me feel like maybe I could be better than the mess I was. And that terrified me more than anything. Silence pooled between them, heavy and aching. Ethan whispered, "Then why now?" "Because seeing you walk in with him felt like losing my last chance. And I can't lose you, Ethan. Not like that. Not without trying." Ethan felt something inside him tremble. The honesty in Mason's voice was a blade, sharp and dangerous. But he stayed quiet. Let him talk. Let him unravel. Mason reached out but stopped inches from touching Ethan's hand. "I should have told you everything months ago. I should have fought for you instead of hiding behind excuses. I'm sorry." The apology didn't fix anything, but it cracked the wall Ethan had spent months trying to build. Ethan's voice softened. "I'm not a toy, Mason. You don't get to pick me up only when you're scared to lose me." "I know," Mason breathed, "but I want to do this right. If you'll let me." Ethan stared at him for a long moment. Before he could answer, the terrace door opened. Preston stepped out, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. "Time's up." Ethan turned toward Preston, caught between two worlds he never asked to choose from. The warmth from Mason's confession still clung to his skin, but Preston's presence created a sharp, clean break in the air. Preston wasn't just powerful. He radiated a steadiness Ethan had yearned for. And yet, the tremble in Mason's voice echoed louder than anything else. Preston studied Ethan first, then Mason, as if measuring the distance between them with an expert eye. "If I interrupted something important, I apologize," he said calmly, though something in his tone suggested he already knew exactly what he had walked into. Mason straightened. "We were just finishing." Preston's eyebrow lifted slightly. It didn't sound finished. Ethan gently stepped back from both of them, needing space to breathe. Emotion pulsed under his ribs, tangled and overwhelming. I think I need a moment." Preston softened. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Mason hesitated before speaking, voice quiet. "Ethan, I meant everything I said." Ethan nodded but didn't answer. Mason lingered, his eyes searching Ethan's face one last time before he finally stepped inside, leaving the terrace in stunned silence. For several seconds, the only sound was the hum of the city below. Preston approached slowly, not intruding, his presence steady. "Is he the one you have been trying so hard to forget?" Ethan let out a shaky breath. "I don't know. Maybe not. He hurt me, Preston. People hurt each other most when they are afraid," Preston replied gently. "And that man looks terrified of losing you." Ethan turned to him. "Why do you even care? You barely know me." Preston smiled, small and honest. "I don't have to know everything to see your worth. But I won't compete for your attention, Ethan. You deserve someone who chooses you without hesitation." Ethan's throat tightened. Preston's sincerity was grounding. Felt safe. But safe wasn't always what the heart answered to. He whispered, "You think I should give him another chance?" Preston shook his head. "That is a choice only you can make. I just want you to follow the truth, not the fear." Ethan stared back into the party through the glass doors. Mason stood alone near the edge of the crowd, eyes locked on the terrace as though waiting for Ethan to return. His expression was raw, unguarded in a way Ethan had never seen before. Ethan's heart pulled painfully. Preston noticed. "Go," he murmured. Ethan's breath caught. Preston gave a small nod. "Go see what your heart is trying to tell you." Ethan swallowed, touched his arm gently in gratitude, and stepped back inside. The crowd seemed louder now, or maybe it was the sound of his pulse quickening. Mason looked up the moment Ethan approached. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic, just two pairs of eyes finding each other in a room full of strangers. But it was enough. Ethan stopped in front of him. Mason didn't speak first this time. He waited, as if afraid any wrong word might scare Ethan away. Ethan breathed in slowly. "What you said out there, it mattered. But words aren't enough. Not anymore." Mason nodded. "I know. Tell me what you need, Ethan. I'll do it." Ethan searched his face, the vulnerability, the cracks in the armor Mason once wore so proudly. "I need to stop wondering if I matter to you. I need to stop questioning myself every time you pull away. I need honesty. Real honesty. Even when it's messy. You have it, Mason whispered. From now on, you have all of it. Ethan hesitated. And what about the fear? The job, your life, the things you said. Mason stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that Ethan felt the warmth of him. I'll face all of it. I'm done hiding. If being with you messes everything up, then let it. You're worth the mess. Always were. Ethan's breath shuddered, tears threatening. For so long he had begged, silently or not, for even a fraction of this truth. And now it was being given freely. Still, he whispered, you can't promise things you're not ready to deliver. Mason swallowed hard. Then let me start with something small. Something I should have said a long time ago. Ethan looked up. I love you. The words didn't explode. They didn't echo. They simply landed, soft and undeniable, in the space between them. Ethan's chest tightened, a mixture of relief, pain, and wonder. Mason's voice cracked. I love you so much it scares me, but I'm done letting fear ruin what could be the best thing in my life. For the first time that night, Ethan didn't look away. His voice trembled. You broke my heart, Mason. I know, Mason whispered, and I'll spend as long as it takes earning back your trust. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, something inside him had shifted. He stepped closer until their foreheads brushed lightly, breath mingling under the chandelier's soft glow. "'Kay," he murmured. "Then let's try. But slow. Carefully." Mason's exhale was almost a sob. "Anything you want. Anything." Their hands finally touched, fingers intertwining in a quiet, fragile promise. From across the room, Preston watched for a moment, then smiled to himself and turned away. Sometimes choosing the right thing meant stepping back. Ethan leaned into Mason, a warmth blooming in his chest that felt like coming home after a long, cold season. The hurt wasn't erased, but it was no longer the whole story. Mason whispered, "Thank you." Ethan shook his head gently. "Don't thank me. Just stay. Really stay." The music swelled, the room blurred, and for the first time in months, Ethan felt like he wasn't the punchline of someone else's joke. He was the start of something real. And as Mason held him close, the world outside the Golden Hall seemed to finally fall into place, piece by trembling piece, until all that remained was the quiet, certain truth settling between them. They would be okay. Maybe messy, maybe imperfect, but okay. And together. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.